So in the late 80s, ZOIDS decided to try out a 1/24 scale line. Now normally the pilots are not the size of this guy. Normally the pilots are these little tiny things. So I think it's pretty cool that by just changing the scale of the toy, they kind of changed the feel of the finished product. Now in this case, I had to have this. It's a Mantis and it's 1/24 scale, so they couldn't have made something more aimed directly at me. But yeah, so this is the Dontress, which is, I don't know of any reason why that name would be applied to a Mantis, but perhaps there is one. So like all ZOIDS, this starts off as a model kit that you put together, and it features these signature rubber caps. Now, these allow a limited amount of articulation. In the case of this guy, it allows the claws to go up and down. The head can rotate. Not a whole lot, but it can rotate. And then back here on the abdomen, this has a little clip which will split, revealing this engine component, and then also these pivot up and down so you can get kind of a cool flying winged formation. Very nice. What this kit has that most ZOIDS do not, other than the other kits in the failed 24 scale line, is this pilot. Now, this comes fully assembled, painted, and it is just a little articulated toy person. I like this. The head itself, they've got some sloppy paint on mine, so that's less than ideal. But as a figure, it's actually pretty cool. It's got a ball joint here at the head, has universal shoulders, ball joint elbow, ball jointed hands, plus they have this little joint right there, so that's actually useful for getting them in riding poses. Waist swivel. Hips don't go out too far, but you know, still pretty damn articulated for a figure of this size. And there's a different figure that comes with each of the 24 scale kits. And in this case, this guy or girl also comes with a blaster that they can hold, like so, or you can pop it onto the hip like that. Very cool. Love the pilot. It's awesome. The kit itself is just a standard ZOID kit other than the scale that it's supposed to be. So you do have to build it yourself. There's no glue required, although in some cases it would be recommended if you really want this thing to hold together well. But this one has not a drop of glue on it. And it comes on sprues, in this case with, I believe, 3 different colors. There's this tan, this dark gray, and then this sort of pearlescent white. And then I guess, well, there's 4 if you count the these little clear orange pieces. There's one there, and there's one right here. And in this case, when I built this, I painted these blades silver, these engine pieces, you know, a couple little bits. You saw the part back here. Kind of did a little silver on the grill there. And in my opinion, I think mine looks fine. It's not certainly without detail, but when I show you the box, I think you'll understand where this kit could be and where it was meant to go, just in terms of artistic direction. But even as is, even if you don't paint the silver parts, I still think it's a really pretty kit. There's just something about this just plain white Mantis head over the robotic underparts. I don't know. I think it's really cool. It's a look that appeals to me for some reason. One of the other touches that I didn't go all the way with is this decal sheet. Now these are water transfers, so you have to cut them out, you have to get them wet, and then slide them onto the place where they need to go. And I have not really felt the impulse to do so, but there's at least a couple that at some point I'll put on. Like this one is a instrument gauge, which would go on this clear orange part right here, which would look really awesome. And then you can see there's just some general accents, which would really bring out the I hate to say realism because we're talking about a giant robot Mantis, but you know what I mean. There's 3 versions of this kit. The first and the third are virtually identical with this white, and then the second version, or the first reissue, has red parts instead of white, and then the body's a little differently colored. Either way, the first 2 versions have different box art. Not quite as cool, in my opinion. I really like this. There's no buildings in the background. You can't really see anything. It's kind of a soft sort of impressionistic landscape, but you still get the feeling of like a post-apocalyptic Mad Max style world patrolled by these warrior women on their flying Mantis mecha. So cool. How can I live in this world? The other thing that's different about this issue of the toy, the Panzer Tier, so they did an interesting thing. The 24 scale line was obviously meant to be 1/24 scale. But for Panzer Tier, they renamed it a 120 scale. And basically what they did was here's the original pilot, and they give you a kit for this pilot, which, if you compare the relative size, I mean, here's a leg piece, you can see how much bigger the pilot is. So it retroactively changes the size of the machine so that it's a much smaller scout-sized vehicle as opposed to a big hulking machine, compared to the original pilot. So that's kind of an interesting change of scale. The other thing about it is that the look of this pilot, you can see it much more matches the aesthetic of the design itself. And one day when I get my kit completed and weathered, I would love to build my pilot to look just like this. I mean, look how cool that helmet design is. That is just awesome. Far superior to the original. In terms of action features, like all Zoids, it has a wind-up motor. So you turn this, and then it gets a walking action. Let's see. Here we go. But if you set him down, he's not very successful at actually walking. It takes a lot more strength to move this guy along than he has, at least in my version. So of course, what's the fun of scaled items if you don't show off the scale? In this case, here's another 1/24. This is Hound from the Alternators line. And you can see they're both all-terrain vehicles, both used by the military, and both powerful machines. But it gives you a sense for just how big the Dontress would be compared to something of the same scale. And here's the pilot standing next to the Jeep, so you can see it's a pretty good match. Overall, the proportions and design of this guy are a little bit toy-like and cartoony, but anyway, you get the idea for the general scale. Works pretty well. So there we are, our first foray into the world of the 24 scale Zoid line. A lot of these kits are super expensive on eBay and the secondary market, but if you keep your eyes open, you can still find a deal here or there. And in the meantime, hey, you can just enjoy the kits that I've made and will build in the future. So either way, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Until next time.